Not survival, not happiness, power. This is what you want, whether you admit it or not. Yes, I say it clearly. Power is the hidden spring of all life. I have watched the world praise humility and then bow before conquest. I have watched the weak invent moralities to chain the strong, and the strong disguise themselves in robes of meekness. But underneath it all, what stirs? What moves every man, every woman, every trembling will? It is not the desire to survive. That is the instinct of a stone, not a spirit. It is not the pursuit of happiness. That is the comfort of livestock, not the challenge of greatness. It is the will to power. This is not some dark and savage hunger to dominate. The will to power is the will to grow, to become, to overcome. It is the will of life itself, the will of the artist, the warrior, the mother, the philosopher. Look beneath any virtue, any belief, any system of order or beauty or truth, and you will find this force. It moves unseen, but it is not passive. It is the pulse in your blood. It is the tension behind your silence. It is the desire to shape the world instead of being shaped by it. Darwin, he spoke of survival. Freud, he spoke of pleasure. But I go deeper. Tell me, what use is survival if one survives in chains? What use is pleasure if it leads to nothing beyond the moment? You call yourself civilized, but I have seen your civilization. I have seen the way you cower behind laws, behind doctrines, behind pity. And yet, even in your cowardice, your will to power stirs. You suppress it with your morality, your guilt, your so-called virtues. But it does not die. It waits. It is the force that created every god, every empire, every song and temple and question. And when it is denied, it becomes bitter. It becomes a force that lashes out in resentment, that poisons from within. I tell you, better to own this will than to be owned by it. Better to direct it into greatness than to smother it in shame. I will teach you to see what you have hidden from yourselves, and in that light you will finally be free. Let me now speak of Darwin. He looked at the world and saw struggle. Struggle for food, for space, for safety. He believed the strongest would survive. Yeah, that is part of the picture. But it is only the minimum. I do not deny Darwin's brilliance. I reject his conclusion. Survival is not life's aim. It is merely the floor. It is not enough to survive. The amoeba survives. The coward survives. Even the sick survive, if protected. But to live is something else. To live is to overcome, to press outward, to shape. Life is not a clinging, it is a leaping. And then comes Freud, whispering of pleasure, of desire, of unconscious longings. He speaks of eros, the drive to love, to fuse, to be satisfied. But I ask you, what is pleasure if not the echo of power achieved? Who truly enjoys pleasure, the one who is weak and sated, or the one who has won, who has conquered, who feels his will affirmed in the body, in the moment? We do not seek pleasure for its own sake. We seek it when it proves our strength, when it is a sign of ascent, when it is power made flesh. I have said it before, and I will say it again. What is good? All that heightens the feeling of power, the will to power, power itself in man. What is bad? All that proceeds from weakness. This is not metaphor. This is not theory. This is diagnosis. Life itself is will to power. The antithesis of this is not death, but stagnation. To survive without creating, without growing, without overcoming, that is the slow death of the spirit. And so I ask you now, what is it you truly desire when you speak of truth, of peace, of love? Do you seek these things because they are good in themselves, or because they grant you orientation, clarity, leverage? Do you long for peace, or for the kind of strength that no longer needs to fight? Do you seek truth, or do you seek a sword with which to cut through the fog of the world? The will to power hides beneath your noblest questions, and I am here to drag it into the light. What do you call the pursuit of knowledge? Enlightenment, progress, virtue, number? It is conquest. You seek knowledge not to be neutral, but to gain mastery, to take the chaos of the world and bind it in concept, to label it, define it, hold it in the palm of your thought. When you say, I want to know, what you mean is, I want to hold power over the unknown. Even your love of truth is not pure. In the gay science, I said it plainly, the will to truth is a will to power. Remember this, etch it into your bones. Und art. You call it beauty, you call it therapy, but it is something more. It is the raw force of transformation. The artist is not escaping reality. He is imposing form upon it. He is making the unbearable bearable. He is turning pain into style, chaos into rhythm, death into meaning. Do you see? This too is the will to power, to take suffering and make from it a crown. And what of morality? Do you think it is eternal? Do you think it floats down from the heavens like snow upon the mountains? Number morality is created, by the powerful or by those who envy them. When the strong establish values, they praise nobility, courage, vitality. When the weak establish values, they praise meekness, sacrifice, humility. Both systems are acts of power. Both are attempts to shape the world in one's own image. You think of good and evil as opposites. I tell you, they are tools. They are the masks worn by those who wish to win the war of meaning. So ask yourself, when you create something new, whether a law, a painting, a love letter, do you feel at peace, or do you feel power? Do you feel yourself expanding? That is your will speaking. And here is the subtle danger. The will to power is not always conscious. You may say you act out of kindness, out of reason, out of faith, but beneath these masks the will moves. It whispers, it plots, it flows beneath your words, your posture, your silence, until you see it, until you choose to name it. Now, let us speak of masks. You believe you're good. But why? Do you remember who first taught you that word? Good. Word handed down like a commandment. But I ask you to look deeper, as I did in my genealogy of morals. Where did this word come from? What did it originally mean? It did not come from the weak. It came from the powerful. The noble ones, those who saw themselves as strong, vital, joyful. They called themselves good. It meant noble, it meant high. It meant, we are the standard, and those beneath them, they were not yet evil. They were simply the others, the common, the low. But over time something happened. A new morality emerged, one born not of strength, but of resentment. The weak, unable to rise, redefined virtue itself. They said, what we are, that is good. What we cannot be, that is evil. And so began the slave morality. The strong said, good is power, good is pride, good is joy. The weak replied, good is humility, good is obedience, good is self-denial. They sanctified their weakness. They called their fear compassion, their cowardice patience, their helplessness mercy. This is not cynicism. This is not scorn. This is diagnosis. This is what I call genealogical analysis. If you want to know the truth of a value, ask, who benefits from it? Who rises when this is called good? Who falls when it is called evil? Do not be deceived by the words carved into stone tablets. Ask who wrote them and why. We will now take this lens, this scalpel, and apply it to the domains you hold most sacred. Religion, science, love. Prepare yourself. You will not emerge unchanged. Let us begin with religion. I know what you were taught. Blessed are the meek. But I ask you, Who says this and why? The Christian morality, which now coats your culture like a glaze, was not born from triumph. It was born from inversion. It is the revenge of the downtrodden. The slave, the beggar, the broken, these are the heroes of the Christian myth. Look at its symbols, the cross, an instrument of humiliation, becomes a throne. The crucified, the defeated, is hailed as king. The last shall be first. Yes, this is power, but power wearing a mask of surrender. In the Antichrist, I spoke plainly. Christianity is a rebellion against natural instincts, a protest against nature. It is a formula for the civilization. You praise suffering. You glorify the victim. You sanctify weakness. But you do not call it what it is, a power strategy from those without other means. It is not evil, it is not a lie, it is simply a reversal. The weak could not become strong, so they declared strength to be sin, now science. Here too you whisper of objectivity, of method, of reason, but who's behind the microscope? A pure mind or a will? In Beyond Good and Evil, I unveiled what hides beneath the philosopher's logic. Every argument, every deduction, every law, beneath them all lies a prejudice, a desire, a will. You want to explain the world? Perhaps. But more often, you want to categorize it, to contain it, to render it predictable, stable, usable. Science is not detached. It is driven. It is the will to master the unknown. Even your neutrality is a tactic. Even your equations are commands. And now love, the noblest of lies. What do you call love? Sacrifice? Union? Care? Yes and no. Love is a battlefield of wills. We demand fidelity. We demand recognition. We demand obedience. Softly, sweetly, but still we demand. What is jealousy, dressed in its Sunday best, but the fear of losing possession? What is devotion, if not a moral cage? We claim to love the other, but we often mean, I want you to be mine. I want you to reflect me, to mirror me, to orbit me. I do not condemn this. I only name it. In relationships, power does not vanish. It dances, it flirts, it wears perfume and poetry, but it is there. Religion, science, love. 3 altars of your civilization, but each is built on the trembling will to power. Each hides it, each denies it. You say you seek truth, but I see strategy. You say you seek goodness, but I see camouflage. And now that I've shown you the masks, I ask, will you keep wearing them, or will you speak the name of the force that moves you? Let me now speak to your misunderstanding. You hear me speak of power, and you think of cruelty, of domination, of clenched fists and shouted orders. Number, that is the caricature of power drawn by the weak. True power is not brutality. It is not the scream of the tyrant or the lash of the whip. True power is overflowing strength. It is the joy that pours out of a full cup. It is what creates, not what destroys. When I wrote Zarathustra, I said, the noble soul has reverence for itself. Do you understand what this means? It means that the truly powerful need not shout. They need not dominate. They affirm themselves not by crushing others, but by creating from their own depths. Power is not conquest. Power is creation. The artist who takes the chaos of grief and gives it color and form, that is power. The dancer whose body becomes a hymn to existence, that is power. The one who forgives not out of duty, but because they are too strong to hate, that is power. This is what I call the great yes-sayer. The one who does not define themselves by what they oppose, but by what they birth. This is the opposite of resentment, that venomous state where the soul reacts, accuses, envies, always in the shadow of the other. The yes-sayer is free. He does not need permission. He does not wait for approval. He is the sun, not the moon. The reactive soul defines itself by wounds. The creative soul defines itself by will. Now I ask you, where in your life do you express your surplus? Where do you sing because you must? Where do you build because your strength demands it? And where, be honest, do you suppress it? Where have you traded joy for obedience? Where have you quieted your voice, not out of wisdom, but out of fear? You were not made to tiptoe. You were made to shape, not to dominate, but to radiate. And if your strength frightens others, let it. That is their mask to carry. Yours is to shine. Yours is to create. This is power, not a clenched fist, but an open hand offering the world something only you could make. And so I say, honor your overflow. It is not sin. It is not arrogance. It is your truth. Now I turn to you. You have heard enough theory, enough quotations, enough critique of culture and creed. The question now is not what I see. It is what you see. What in your life is driven by the will to power? Not as domination, not as manipulation, but as force, as creation, as becoming. Where are you exerting your strengths? Where are you shaping your world? And where, be honest, are you submitting? Where have you bowed your head, not out of reverence, but out of habit? I want you to ask yourself, when have you created something, a piece of music, a new idea, a daring choice, and felt your spine straighten? When have you risked, leapt, bared your soul, and felt more alive? That was your will to power. And now, when have you been praised for being good, but felt small? When have you been told you were kind, obedient, humble, and something inside you withered? That too is the will to power. But chained, starved, forced into a costume, you do not escape this force by denying it. You merely drive it underground. And what grows in the dark? Not wisdom, not virtue, but resentment, addiction, despair. That is the cost of pretending to be a sheep. You are not a sheep, and I am not asking you to become a tyrant. I am asking you to stop lying. I am asking you to stop whispering when you were born to speak. I am asking you to look honestly at your life and ask, where am I powerful? Where am I passive? And what would change if I stopped apologizing for my strength? You are not called to obey. You are called to aim. And if you do not aim this will, it will aim you. It will twist. It will corrupt. It will turn you bitter. So take it, face it, name it. And from this point forward, choose. But do not imagine you can escape. Even now, this very moment, you are exercising your will. Even in your pursuit of this truth, you're moved by power. Yes, even the search for truth is a power move. You think it is noble, you think it is pure. But ask yourself, as I asked in Beyond Good and Evil, Section 1, why do we want truth? Is it because it is good? Because it is right? Because it is sacred? Number. We want truth because it gives us control, because it lets us navigate the chaos, because to name something is to cage it. You think the scientist is disinterested. He builds systems, he constructs models, he says, here is the law. But what is this if not an act of dominion over uncertainty? And the prophet, what does he do? He claims access to the ultimate. He commands, this is the way. And the reformer, he tears down idols, but only to erect new ones. Each claims truth. Each wields it like a sword. Even nihilism, the dark poison of our age, it claims to believe in nothing. But what is this really? It is a failed will to power. It destroys, but it does not create. It breaks meaning, but cannot replace it. And so it collapses into despair. It is not the opposite of belief. It is belief turned against itself. Even logic, yes, even your precious logic, is not neutral. In Twilight of the Idols, I told you, Logic is an aesthetic preference. It pleases the mind that loves order. It soothes the soul that fears contradiction. But it is still a choice, a taste. You say, this is rational. But I ask, why do you value the rational? Because it gives you mastery. Because it carves paths through the unknown. This is the final twist. You are not a seeker of truth because you are pure. You are a seeker of truth because you are powerful. Because you want to know. Because you want to name. Because you want to orient. And that too is the will to power. You read me now. You listen. You write. But beneath it all, you aim. And now we come to it. The choice. You see now, the will to power is not evil. It is inevitable. You cannot wish it away. You cannot outgrow it. You cannot pray it into silence. The only question is, what will you do with it? If you reject it, it will not vanish. It will turn inward. It will fester. It will speak in the voice of envy. It will twist into manipulation. It will settle as resentment. But if you embrace it, then it becomes art. Then it becomes courage. Then it becomes creation and transformation and beauty. This is your task, not to deny power, but to master it. Not to crush others, but to rise within yourself, to become who you are. As I wrote in Zarathustra, you must become who you are. Not who your parents told you to be, not who your church expects, not who your fears allow, who you are. The will to power is not a curse, it is your inheritance. But like all power, it will either be wielded with purpose, or it will consume you. So I ask, are you rising as a creator, or shrinking as a disguised force? Are you naming the world, or obeying its names? Are you building or hiding? Because the will to power is in you already. It is there, in your longing, in your rage, in your joy, in your silence. It is there. Will you own it, or be owned by it?